Hey everyone, it's Michael here from goodereader.com, and holy e-readers galore. There's so many new devices that have just hit the market or are on the cusp of being released soon. Let's talk about some of the ones that have just come out. The Boyue Likebook Alita. It's been one of the most highly anticipated e-readers of the year. It's a 10.3-inch screen, 4 gigs of RAM, screen's completely flush with the bezel, and very much like your smartphone where the SIM card has like a little SIM card port, like where um, when you have a phone and you open and close the SIM card, that's sort of like where the SD card is on the Alita. So it's sort of a hidden tray, which is kind of cool because it's not like most e-readers that have like an exposed SIM card slot. So once you put it in, you wouldn't really even know that you had one. This is a digital note-taking device that's basically designed to freehand draw as well as annotate PDFs as well as ebooks as well. It has Android, so you'll be able to install like your own apps. And the big selling point behind this is that it's one of the few that are around that has like an octa-core processor. So it's very fast, and we were lucky enough to review it like a few months ago. Boyue told us at the time that they were sort of revising the software experience to this, so they finally said that yes, it's in a good enough shape to release, but it's in limited quantities right now. It's retailing for $539 from the Good e-Reader store. And also, the SuperNote A6 is beginning to ship. SuperNote A6 is sort of the smaller brother to the A5. So SuperNote is a Japanese company. They were only selling their e-readers in China until we basically convinced them to start selling it through our store to gain more international visibility. And we're selling like a lot, like 50 to 60 like a month, which is pretty cool. So the A6 is finally shipping. I believe we shipped off like 30-40 orders like already just today. So it's a 7.8-inch screen. It's a Wacom active digitizer. It comes with a cool stylus, but SuperNote also released a Heart of Metal series. We haven't posted the review on YouTube yet, but we have filmed it. It's basically a stylus totally made out of like metal, and so it has like a really hefty weight. I believe it's like 23 grams. So it's one of the heaviest styli on the market, which makes it easier to hold, to draw, to shade. And I believe that the Heart of Metal stylus are about $59. The SuperNote A6 is $399. And the bigger brother, I believe, is around like 5 something. So the A6 is finally shipping out, which is good news, and probably the biggest e-reader to be released in the last few weeks is the Amazon Kindle Oasis 3. We conducted our review July 24th. The big selling points behind this device is that it's the first Kindle that has like a color temperature system. So it has the quintessential glow light, the same type of glow light experience that you would find like in Kobo e-readers and Barnes & Noble e-readers. So they have a color temperature system. It can go from a white screen to like a very muted, like a sort of like a 25% of the amber light, and I find that that's probably like the sweet spot. And then you can go like full amber. So they both have like slider bars in the drop down settings menu. You can control the brightness as well as the warmth. There's various ways that you can control the warmth. You can have it done like automatically based on the time zone of your e-reader. So like 5 p.m. it'll start like kicking in to a small degree, and around like midnight it'll kind of go full amber. It's based on a new way of doing things. So not only can it run on a time of day, but it also has ambient light sensors. There's two, one above each of the power buttons. So it'll automatically adjust the brightness and the warmth of the color temperature system based on your environmental conditions. So there's a few different ways to do it. And Amazon did too, because sometimes like when you're manually churning page churns, because it has two page churn buttons on the right hand side, so you might cover one of the ambient light sensors, so the one that's not being obfuscated by your finger, those are the ones that will do it. So it has a Freescale dual core processor, so it has the mythical IMX7. So basically the last two generations of the Oasis were the only ones to ever employ the Freescale dual-core processor, and Freescale processors are pretty well the gold standard when it comes to e-readers. Almost everybody uses either Solo Light, which are 1 gigahertz processors made legit like 10 years ago. So Kobo uses those, Barnes & Noble uses those, a lot of other companies use like deca-core processors, octa-core, quad-core, but they're not using Freescale. They're using sort of generic CPUs, and instead of using what the Kindle does, which is E-Ink Regal. So E-Ink Regal is a waveform controller that E-Ink developed. It basically controls the page turn speeds, the quick, no flash page turn. So when you have a Kindle, if anybody's listening that has had one in the past, you probably know that when you turn the page of an ebook, it's an instant translation. There's no full page refresh, and so that's what Wriggle does. It controls basically the amount of refreshing and optimizes the e-ink experience. So when you have like a Kindle, it doesn't refresh to maybe every 6 or 12 or 24 pages you'll see a full page refresh, and there's little to no ghosting. So that's the benefits from there. The e-readers, e-ink devices that basically, like the Boyue Likebook Alita, for example, they're not using Freescale processors, so they're using a waveform controller called A2 mode, which basically does the same thing as Regal, although it does it a bit differently. So with the Oasis 3, I'm pretty bullish on this. It's waterproof. The page turn buttons could go on the right or left hand side depending on what whether you're right or left handed. It has a built-in gyroscope, so if you're reading it, if you want the page turn keys on the left hand side, you just sort of switch it and it automatically do it, but there's no way to actually disable the gyroscope. But I noticed with the 3rd generation Oasis, the gyroscope is less sensitive than the 2nd generation. There's 2 variants, 8 gigs, about $249 US, 32 gigs, about $279. The 3G, 4G LTE version is basically like $100 more. I like this device because it's waterproof. It has like a large 7-inch screen. It has a system-wide dark mode, so you could invert the colors, so the background would be black, text would be white. It just doesn't do it when you're reading ebooks, but it does it like across like the entire spectrum. So I believe that one of the big underrated selling points of the Oasis is that it has Amazon fonts, so it supports Kindle Format 8. It has proprietary Amazon fonts like Bookerly, Ember Bold. There's options to basically change the font size across the entire device. So if you are sort of not that great at seeing, you want like fonts to be bigger, you can actually turn on bigger fonts. So across the entire device, every font in the menus and stuff and settings menus are a bit differently. Too much to really kind of go into, but we do have like an unboxing and a review video on our YouTube channel, as well as the Amazon Kindle Oasis 3 2009 e-reader review on the front page of our website, so you may want to check that out. Finally, one of the other devices that was just announced today, and Pocketbook confirmed it with me, is the InkPad Pro will be available soon. They said as early as next week, although I don't have like a definitive price or anything like that yet, but Good e-Reader will be selling it on our online store. Basically, what makes this different than the Pocketbook InkPad? Well, this model has it's waterproof with IPX8. It also has Bluetooth, so you can connect up a pair of external speakers and wireless headphones to listen to audiobooks or music because it has a built-in player. It has 16 gigs of internal storage, giving you enough space to house said ebooks or audiobooks or music. It's 7.8 inches, resolution's about 1404 by 1872, which is 300 ppi. Dual core processor, 1 gig of RAM. It doesn't have an SD card, but one of the things that Pocketbook's always done that's always really impressed me is the sheer amount of ebook formats that it supports. It supports manga, comic book formats, docx. It has Adobe DRM support, so if you buy EPUBs or PDFs with DRM from other retailers or from the library, you can actually sideload them on the Pocketbook, which is pretty cool. So they are sending us a review of it soon. Like a unit for us to review, but I kind of don't really know exactly when. So you may want to stay tuned for that. In addition, kind of elaborating a little bit more on Amazon Kindle Paperwhite news. They have the Paperwhite 4 came out in November 2008. The only available color at the time was black. The company has just added a new color that is available right now called Twilight Blue. This is apropos because it is waterproof. So this Kindle Paperwhite 4 is waterproof. So it's sort of like a baby blue. It's the back is blue as well as the edges of the bezel are blue. So still the front of the bezel is still black, still has the white Kindle logo. So you do have that contrast between a black screen, black text, and a white background. So it doesn't really cost anything extra to get the blue model, so some people were kind of waiting to see what type of other color options that Amazon was kind of doing with the Paperwhite, so it does do that. I hope that they add more color options, the entry-level Kindle black or white, the Paperwhite black, now baby blue, Oasis only available in one color. I do like the ability to have different color options available. We actually did a report lately on black and white bezels. Let me just try to pull this up really quick. We did a video on it as well. Do black and white bezels make a big difference when reading ebooks? Hundreds of people weighed in on Facebook, on LinkedIn, right on our blog. It basically kind of runs down based on environmental lighting conditions, when you're reading at night, a black and white bezel sort of are engulfed in shadows. You really don't know the difference. But some people found, and we found this as well, that a black bezel, the white background of e-paper, and black text adds the perfect amount of contrast, whereas with a white bezel, it's sort of things kind of get lost in a negative space because it has a white background and black text, so there's not a whole lot of contrast. So we're actually doing future videos on this to say, okay, does black and white bezels make a big difference when you are having a front light on, or the color temperature system on, or reading next to a lamp, or having a book light? These are some of the things that we never did with our initial report, but some people were sort of asking about it. So kind of wanted to really do a little bit more on that for you all. So those are pretty well all of the e-readers that have been announced in the last few weeks or are on the verge of coming out. So there's a lot of new devices. It's a really exciting time. I believe that e-readers right now are basically undergoing a resurgence. We've been running this blog since 2008, so a year after the original Kindle came out. So we've really kind of seen the rise and fall of the e-reader industry, the rise and fall of the e-book industry, and so on. So we kind of noticed that once the Kindle came out and started getting traction, Barnes & Noble, Kobo kind of came to the table a few years later to release their devices. A lot of brands kind of jumped into the fray saying, hey, this e-reader industry, there's a lot to it. Let's make some money. So from like around 2008 to about 2012 was sort of the glory years of the e-reader revolution. Everybody was making just like boatloads of money. Like Barnes and Noble was making billions of dollars a year on their Nook, and that, as much as they've fallen, that's really kind of says a lot about their humble beginnings. They were making a ton of money. Everybody was. Even like our website was making tons of money with like ad revenue and this and that, and just like web traffic. And so from about like 2013 to about 2000, end of 2015, it was sort of like dark days of e-readers. Like nobody was really doing anything exciting. There was just this non-stop parade of 6-inch e-readers. Kobo tried the mini, which was 5 inches, commercial failure. But like everyone was just basically in a holding pattern. There really wasn't much advancement. And then all of a sudden, things started to get really interesting. Waterproof was the norm. Frontlit displays were the norm. Color temperature systems with the amber LED lights was like the norm. We started to see digital note-taking devices with the Sony digital paper really sort of disrupt the market. And then all of a sudden, Onyx, Boyue, SuperNote, like all these companies started entering the fray, sort of focusing on the higher end e-ink market, which were Wacom digitizer layers, stylus support. With a traditional e-reader, you could also read books, but the screens were basically bigger and better. So about 7.8 to 9.7 to 10.3 to 13.3. I noticed that 10.3 and 13.3 sold way better than any of the other sized screens, but like aimed at professionals, $399 to about $899 were about like the entry level price points. Even now, they were more expensive when they first came out because it was just unproven tech and they had to make some money. But now I would say that we're entering the glory days of e-readers once again. All the time, e-readers are coming out with these exciting new features: faster processors, more RAM, more internal storage. SD cards could support 128 gigs of additional storage now. Digital note-taking devices, there's a strong segment for those. There's a lot of people that use it as a replacement for paper. So students, people involved in the business world, or just artists that just want to freehand draw and not have like an iPad or a Samsung Galaxy Note phone or something like that, because e-ink in general is easier on the eyes. So that's why it's always been a very niche product, and it's always had its up and downs. But I kind of feel that our web traffic is higher now than it was like a few years ago. We're reviewing way more devices now than we have ever had. It's just there's so many new devices coming out month to month, year on year, that it's very exciting. And I feel that my interest in e-readers has been totally revitalized. A few years ago, I was kind of on the downs about, man, the e-reader industry is really not doing anything new. It's like, oh, another 6-inch e-reader. How can I be excited on video or in my written review about it? But now there's just so much interesting stuff happening, like design-wise, aesthetically. Like the Kobo Forma or the Oasis, very asymmetrical designs, very interesting. A lot of other e-readers on the market are interesting as well, in their own ways. Like Kobos have built-in overdrive functionality now, so you can borrow ebooks right on the device, and that just makes it it makes it so much more accessible for like your average user that just doesn't want to buy ebooks from the built-in ebook store, and maybe side-loading content is like too confusing, or you just really kind of don't want to do it. But now you can actually just borrow ebooks from the library right on the device, in a bunch of different countries. So from the software to the hardware to just the different verticals, there's more screen sizes now than there's ever been before. No longer is a 6-inch e-reader a norm, but you can go from 7 inches to 9.7 to 10.3 and everywhere in between. So This has been a very brief edition of the Good e-Reader Radio show. I have gotten a new mic, a new shock mount, a new boom stand. I got like a whole new setup because I recently moved and I realized that the room I was going to devote to podcasting, there's too much echoes in it because there's just not enough art on the walls and soundproofing. So I just decided to, set it up under my new setup with my bought new things in order to do more radio shows more often. So you can expect that the Good e-Reader Radio Show will persevere. And whenever that there's like a new device or something like that, do a brief radio show, let you guys know my thoughts about it in audio form in case you don't want to read the articles, or if you just want to have an expansion on the articles, because a lot of the times my articles are sort of brief to the point. This is a new e-reader. These are the big selling points. Here's the specs. And the radio show gives me a little bit of a different platform to give you our thoughts on it. So out of all the new e-readers that have come out, or are just on the verge of coming out, the Oasis 3 and the Alita are probably the two best. So one's a digital note taker, one's more of a consumer-friendly device. They're both ridiculously expensive at what they do, but if you want a flagship device that basically does everything, you want to stick with those. For the Good e-Reader Radio Show, my name is Michael, and everybody take care.